Preface. This is my first story outside of the echoes of Ascension universe. I've had a blast writing about something weird, wonderful, and a little creepy. This is the first in a series of novellas from stories that have been brewing in my mind. Thanks for being here. Prologue. The flare in her hand hissed violently as she stumbled ahead, her heart beating in her throat. So dark, she thought, her mind racing. She waved the dying flare back and forth, wincing as the gash on her side throbbed. A wave of sharp pain washed around her torso. She found a wall. Exasperated, she slid down the side of the corridor, clutching at her wound. Not like this. I can't die like this. She patted the area under her vest where the thing's claw had cut her. Damn. This is bad. She pulled her hand back and inspected her blood-covered palm. A shriek from somewhere behind her sent ice crawling up her spine. It's far, she decided, at least I think it is. Groaning, she willed herself up and continued on, forcing her way through the immense pain. From the waist down, she was drenched in blood. The flare revealed shuffling over to what looked like the control console. She tapped her forearm on it. Silence. Damn thing. There must be no power here. She groaned again, trying to pry it open. It wouldn't open. Damn thing, she raged, kicking it as frustration overtook her. A deep growl echoed around her. Her head snapped toward the sound. That one was closer. I will not die here. She tapped the screen strapped to her forearm. A holographic menu display appeared in the air above it, and she began interacting with it. Her hand trembled as she scrolled through the various options, drops of warm blood rolling down her arm. Pain shot through her lower body again, bringing her to her knees. She fell forward onto her hands as her vision blurred, the pain setting in. It was all she could do not to pass out. Get up! Up! I won't. I'm not going to die down here. She grasped at the control console, hauling herself up on it. She continued searching through her device, fumbling her way through the menus. Medical, scanning, settings, torch, she scoffed. The torch option was grayed out. Damn you, Kasparov, I might die because of you. Another wave of pain interrupted her. It faded. There, finally! She celebrated briefly. Override. That's what I need. She swiped at it frantically, and the screen shifted, presenting a secondary menu with even more options. What did the manual say again? Her mind raced, trying to recall any one of the masses of tutorials she'd watched on rewiring circuitry, programming and hacking. Everything went black for a moment. The flare. No, I'm losing too much blood. She could hardly stay upright. I'm not getting in here in this condition. The narrow corridor stretched for hundreds of meters either side. She was exhausted. Letting go, she slid back down to the ground. She rolled over, bringing her arm up to her face. Accessing the device, she swiped until she found the medical module. She spent her last few chips to activate it. It better work. An emergency care option pulsed gently. She selected it. Out of her rucksack, a small buddy appeared. Please lie down. Make your body straight. Please lie down. It commanded quietly. Begrudgingly, she obliged. It stopped speaking, and a blue light flickered on below it. It began to hover over her, moving from her head down to her toes, scanning her completely. Scan complete, it said as the blue light disappeared. It quickly made its way back up to her abdomen and bathed the affected area in a red light. Laceration detected. Administer pain relief. As it spoke, it moved on, completing the diagnosis. Returning to her rucksack, it entered it briefly, returning with a small metal injector. She grabbed the injector and slammed it into her thigh. The device pulsed green. Okay, next step. It spoke again. Flesh fuser required. Retrieving. It shot back into the rucksack and began searching for the flesh fuser. It came back empty-handed, making a disapproving beep. It pulsed red. What? The arm word up and down floated patiently next to her. She tried to select the next step on the menu. Each time, the device pulsed red. A subtext menu appeared reading, Component missing from module. Kasparov, that son of a bitch. She sighed, rolling over as she pulled her rucksack off her back. She began searching through it. Blood bag, bandages, and a staple gun. He could have at least given me a decent substitute. Damn. This is going to hurt. She stopped a moment as the pain became unbearable. She gasped as the pain subsided. Now, while I can. She mustered enough strength and courage to tend to the wound. She bit down on a length of bandage hard, holding the staple gun at the bottom of the cut. At least she laughed to herself. That creature cut me so cleanly. At first she hadn't even felt it. She'd hardly had time to turn around before it had attacked. Next thing she knew, her side was wet with blood. She pulled the trigger. She stifled a yelp as the prongs pierced her flesh, covering her mouth with her free hand. That's right. I'm not dying here. She carried on, staple after staple, until at last she had closed the wound. Tears streamed down her face, and it was quiet. The flare had gone out, so the dark once again surrounded her. She shakily swiped at the menus, finding the scan option and selecting it. The buddy arm hovered, turning to one side, illuminating a portion of the corridor with a shimmering blue light. When it was finished, it chirped approvingly, pulsing green. It rotated, beginning its scan of the opposite side of the corridor. It began low. Suddenly, it paused. A few meters away on the ceiling, it had clocked something. The light focused in on its target, becoming a thin, singular beam glaring red. Come to finish the job? She moved her hand slowly down to her side, feeling for her pistol. Without any sudden movements, she unclipped the cable lock that secured it. Whatever it was revealed itself, hissing, baring its fangs. They looked to be at least 6 inches in length. Its beady eyes glowed red in the light of the scanning beam, and she could see its tongue lashing toward her. Time slowed. In what must have been a moment but seemed an eternity, she unholstered the weapon, aimed at the thing above her, and let loose. She fired without restraint, fanning the trigger. Rounds ricocheted all around her. She bellowed, showering the corridor in a rain without pause, until at last the trigger clicked pointlessly. She glanced at the ammo counter as it flashed red, taunting her. Chapter 1. Kasparov, pour me another. Slick slammed his shot glass on the bar. The heavy-set barkeep hobbled over on a wooden leg and began pouring a dark liquid into the glass. Traditional Eastern European music played quietly behind him, an old radio humming away. The room was full of regulars, contractors, grifters, and those who only found solace in the middle ring. You should see the new equipment, Slick. Best anywhere. Kasparov guarantees it, he said as he leaned on his thick, bushy forearms. This new sight, I promise you, Slick, best thing you've ever seen. It is built-in thermal imaging, he continued. Slick smelled his sour breath as he leaned in closer. Slick rolled his eyes. Last time I bought cheap rounds from you, it almost got me killed. Bah! He exclaimed. You must have bought them from Weasel. No, Kasparov would never sell a valued client such rubbish. Give it a rest, Kasparov, one of the twins said from further down the bar. How about you? Kasparov asked, shifting his attention to the bald twins. They were glaring at him. They were hard to tell apart even after all these years. Kasparov sees you drinking his alcohol, but he does not see you buying from his shop. He made his way over to them. I swear to you, best gear in our ring. The twins shook their head at him, smirking. Kasparov gave them a disapproving wave as he muttered something in Russian before serving another, thirsty customer further down. How goes the hunt? The twins asked Slick. They slid down the bar, dark coats draped over their broad shoulders. You know me, always one step ahead, Slick replied, smiling. They nodded in unison. It is good, brother. We also are fortunate. We have killed many of the creatures in the past week. You carving them or donating them? Slick asked, bitter alcohol warming his throat. Always carve, my friend, always carve. They grinned at him. The twins were an odd pair at the best of times, but you don't survive this long without knowing your stuff. Slick sold his kills to the highest bidder. The butchers would pay better for fresher meat, and the scientists would pay better for specific creatures. The twins, however, felt some spiritual connection to their kills and gave them to the butchers, sometimes at a reduced rate. Slick was wise enough not to ask why. New barrel, one noted, running his finger down the rifle slung over Slick's aging green jacket. Old one got too hot for my liking. Happened ever since I switched to smaller rounds. Slick finished the bitter spirit and sighed. You shoot bigger rounds, Slick. Kasparov show you. Please come around, come around. Kasparov beckoned, barging back into the conversation. He nudged Slick, guiding him around to the other side of the bar. One half of the center was a bar. Kasparov had converted the other side into a shop that sold all sorts of equipment. Weapons, straps, and even an old plate was for sale. The patrons often teased him, saying he would sell his own mother if she was still alive. Slick scanned through the wares. He preferred working with Weasel, who only traded high-quality gear at a premium. Surviving out here, you needed top-notch gear. He'd heard too many stories of Spriglets dying due to malfunctioning gear. He spotted the rows of the cheaper ammunition he'd mistakenly bought one time. Damn you, Kasparov! He shook his head. And you see, look here, Slick, this is brand new flesh fuser, still in packaging. I know you don't have medical module on your rig. Come feel it in your hand. Kasparov practically shoved the thing into Slick's hand. Slick had patched people up all his life. Growing up in the rear of the ship, he'd had to learn. Old people, young people. No, he would save his chips and invest it in his rifle. And does it tickle the great Slick's fancy? Slick just smiled at him. Kasparov, try and sell this to some spriglet who believes the crap that comes out of your mouth. Slick noticed the twins chuckling through the grate on the other side of the bar. Bah! You think you are too good for my shop, Slick. I tell you now, one day you will need Kasparov, and he will not help. He snatched the fuser from Slick, which made the twins chuckle harder. Suddenly, a crimson glow lit up the bar. Contractors throughout the place held up small devices displaying a large red exclamation mark. "Emergency ping," Kasparov yelled as he pottered away at his wares, trying to make them look as presentable as he could. Slick tapped at the emergency message. It brought up a map of the sectors. The ping was registered in Sector 4. He was contracted to work in 3, and the twins worked 2. 4 is a dangerous sector, one of the twins breathed, looking at the screen. Almost died there once. The other continued, looking right at Slick as he took the seat next to them. They were right. Old man Eric used to be the contractor there. He'd asked for help a few months back, but never got it from the company. One day, he stopped appearing in Kasparov's bar. No one said much about it, but they all knew. Grizzled old bastard that Eric, Slick remembered. Probably some spriglet stupid enough to accept contract on 4. Bah! Kasparov shook his head as he polished a leather rifle strap. They never learn. Who would be dumb enough to hunt in 4? Ravagers, one of the twins said with his familiar coldness. Bastards, the other confirmed. Who could it be? Is Eric still out there? Old man Eric? Kasparov laughed, bellowing, "No, Slick, let those lost to the dark remain there. Eric deserves peace." The twins nodded in unison. Who would be dumb enough to hunt in 4? Chapter 2. The metal felt cool on his neck. He rinsed the straight razor in the bowl below the foggy mirror. His room, like many others in the back part of the ship, was held together by a bag of bolts and a prayer. He didn't mind it. He spent most of his time in sector and only occasionally used the room to sleep. His neighbours were at it again tonight, screaming at each other. One of them had a serious gambling problem. He finished shaving and plonked himself down on a rickety bed. He read the ship's newspaper. It had smiling families, men, women and children, dressed in overalls, happily going about their duties. It mentioned how proud the company was of those putting in the work required to keep the Ark afloat. Slick sucked at his teeth before tossing it aside. He lay down, staring at the ceiling, and began reciting his painfully long checklist of items before allowing himself some sleep. Rifle, clean. Gear, food, bought some dried rat from Kasparov. Ammo, Weasel gave me a discount on a new quick reload magazine and restocked my rounds. Knife, sharpened. Buddy, damn. I knew I forgot something. He rolled out of bed, rubbing at the long, itchy scar on his back. "Hey, buddy," he said. The mechanical arm attached to his rig came to life and stared at him. "Time to sleep now, old friend. Need you charged up for our next outing." The mechanical arm followed his movements as he pulled out a charging cable and connected it to an outlet. The arm made a light buzz, humming as it retracted back into his rig. A sleek device on his bedside table flashed yellow to indicate it was charging. He picked it up, looking at the various menus and customizations he had made. A small emergency button glowed at the top right of the screen, gnawing at his mind again. No, it's a damned Ravager. It's not Eric. He tapped the button and the sector map opened, zooming into the precise location of the emergency signal. "Don't be stupid. This is how you die, you idiot." He turned the screen off and fell back on his bed, annoyed with himself for even opening the map. Who would be dumb enough to hunt in 4? He'd seen strange things come from 4. Creatures darker than night, 3 times as big as the others. He shook his head as he combed back his dark hair. Let it go. It isn't Eric. He lay on his side, the metal tags around his neck jingling. Start again. Rifle clean, gear, food, bought some dried rat from Kasparov. Ammo, Weasel restocked my rounds. Knife, sharpened. Buddy, charging. Traps, 3 working, 2 in for repairs with Weasel. He recited the list a couple of times to ensure he didn't miss anything. Too often, spriglets would go missing because their buddy system lost charge, or their rifles would jam because of bad maintenance or cheap ammunition. It's not Eric, you fool. Empty your traps and get paid. He sighed as his mind wrestled with the distinct possibility that it could be Eric. He was tough. He'd taught Slick a few things when he was still a new contractor. Most of all, he'd taught him the importance of having someone to look after you out there. Being a contractor meant days or even weeks in zone. Eric had been missing for months now. When a contractor didn't return, everyone drank a silent drink to them and assumed they were gone. It's not him, he's dead, let it be. He tossed the other way, grunting and groaning at the frustrating argument he was having with himself. The neighbours had finally stopped. They were either drunk or tired from all the yelling. It happened so routinely that Slick had begun timing his sleep with its end. Only tonight his mind didn't want to rest. Instead he plotted a rough route in his mind. It won't even take me that much longer. It's not that deep into 4. As a contractor, he could move and hunt freely between sectors, as long as he met his quota. A few hours at most, in and out. I have provisions for days, and enough to help Eric when I find him. He sat upright, grabbed the device, brought up the map and tapped the journey planner button. What if it is Ravagers? The things they do to people. He ignored himself and began plotting the journey. Each sector was an interlinked web of tunnels and corridors. He knew 3 rather well, but even after several years he hadn't explored every part of it. The unknown is what got you killed in zone. Not too bad, I knew it, he thought excitedly as the monitor estimated his journey. Plenty of time to check the signal and tend to my traps on the way back. He smiled, turning the device off. You are making a mistake, he allowed the negative part of himself to say again. Only he wasn't listening anymore. He rolled over, pulling a tattered sheet over himself. He was happy with his decision. If Eric is out there, I will find him. Again. Rifle, clean, gear, food, bought some dried rat from Kasparov. Ammo, Weasel restocked my rounds, knife sharpened. Buddy, charging. Traps, 3 working, 2 in for repairs with Weasel. Chapter 3. Slick yawned as he shut the door to his tiny room, sealing it with a large metal lock. I don't have anything worth stealing in there anyway, he thought as he walked through the narrow halls of the living quarters. Squatters and vagrants littered the halls and stairs leading to the link station. There he caught a train to the middle ring of the ship. His block of apartments were the closest thing to the middle ring, separating the haves and the have-nots. Those in the back were strictly prohibited from entering the rings in front of the colossal ship. The middle ring existed to dissuade any such behavior. Slick's body swayed rhythmically with the tram's movements. Only a few others accompanied him on the carriage. A young man with a clean jacket and new boots. Spriglet, he thought at the sight of him and his newly acquired gear. Another seasoned contractor stood further down. Slick knew him. He hunted in one and had been around for a few years. From his seamed face sprouted a brown-grey beard. He stood there, picking at his teeth, spitting flecks of food on the floor. Any advice for a new contractor? The young man ventured. The brooding veteran gave him a stern look from beneath his battered cap and sucked at his teeth. The young man gulped, tapping away at his knees. Where is your contract? Slick asked, surprising the Spriglet. He took the question as an invitation to come and sit next to him. I'm going to 4, he said nervously. The grizzled man shook his head and smirked. No wonder 4 is out of control. They send these idiots. I've heard Sector 4 is a scary place, Slick said after a pause. What? Well, I've been on 3 hunts. My uncle saved up the chips and the other 2 sectors seemed all right. This made the veteran next to them chuckle. Slick had heard of these so-called guides. They took new contractors and showed them the zone. Usually, they never went too deep into a sector. Sometimes, they might even glimpse a creature before it scampered away. The guides made just enough chips to afford the swill at Kasparov's bar and made the Spriglets feel they were brave enough to take on the world. The young man, now visibly annoyed, glared at the veteran. You think your old jacket and advanced modules make you better than me? The man shook his head and began tapping the screen on his forearm. Slick did admire his rig. It had some modules on there he wished he had. That autoloader is nice. Plus, his buddy system had been upgraded with a mounted machine gun. Slick looked on as the fool began tapping on his own screen, fumbling through the menus, trying to impress them. I'm going to 4 today. Did you want to tag along? The man looked up in relief. Yes, he exclaimed, a little overexcitedly. Yeah, I can tag along. It'll cost you, though. Cost me? Why? Did you want help in the most dangerous sector on this ship, or did you want to stumble around in the dark and die? The man considered Slick's offer a moment. How much? 100 a day. The youngster almost fell off his chair. I can't afford that. Relax. Slick put his hands up apologetically. Because you're new, I'll make you a deal. 50 a day. The man scratched the peach fuzz on his chin and looked up at Slick. Deal, but I get to keep what we hunt. Slick smiled at him and shook his hand. Stupid spriglet. Only Eric managed to make a living in 4. Slick knew the creatures there were tough. They hid well, and there were rumors of larger ones that actually enjoyed hunting people. Slick's new partner unslung his rifle. My name is Tom, by the way. Slick deftly yanked the rifle from his lap and pulled the charging handle, releasing a dull grey round. Slick caught it and inspected it closely. Damn you, Kasparov. He flipped the weapon around in his hands, inspecting the basic stock and rail system. Hey, what are you doing? Tom protested. Lesson 1, never let another man touch your rifle. He tapped the silencer at the front of his rifle. This must have cost him a fortune. These are mostly useless, Slick confirmed. Everything echoes in there, and they can hear better than we can. Kasparov said all the best contractors hunted with them. That comment really got the veteran going. Drops of water squirted from his nose and down his beard as he struggled to swallow from his canteen. Lesson 2, never listen to those who don't go in zone. Tom nodded and snatched his rifle back. He pulled out a notepad and began writing in it. The intercom announced their arrival at the station, and the pair made their way to the next platform. It was littered with wannabe contractors, seasoned veterans, and a few merchants trying to peddle their wares to those heading to the zone. Tom followed Slick closely as they approached the cart heading for 4. A guard scanned the tag around his neck. It beeped green. 4 today, Slick, that's new. The company sent guards to ensure only those who were meant to be in zone were there. Didn't stop the Ravagers and cultists, though. Taking my friend here for a tour of that lovely sector, he nodded toward Tom. Careful of this one boy, he'll clean you out, the guard warned, grinning. He was outfitted in tactical gear of a deep navy blue. His neatly trimmed beard spackled with flecks of grey. Slick smiled and took his seat. The cart went around the ring, stopping at each of the zone entryways. Their trip to 4 would take an hour. You ready, Tom? The young man nodded, trying to not look anxious. Time to find Eric. Chapter 4. The metal door shut with a hiss and a click behind them. Scan, Slick whispered a few steps ahead. His buddy system activated and the arms swung around them, emitting a blue, shimmering light. It scanned one end, then the other, as they moved through the wide tunnel. You didn't tap your arm, Tom noted. Voice module, Slick answered, tapping a round microphone strapped to his neck. I need to get me one of those, Tom continued, his voice too loud for Slick's liking. Slick put his finger over his lips. Tom nodded, and the pair moved ahead in the direction of the emergency ping. Each sector had been designed to be a web of confusion with seemingly no good way in or out. They belonged to the creatures and those who could survive long enough to attempt to solve the ever-growing riddle. They passed under a burst pipe, sprays of lukewarm water cascading down on them as they turned down a narrow corridor. Scan, Slick said again, pausing at the entrance of the narrowing corridor. The blue light shimmered across their surroundings once more. He had paired his buddy system with Tom's. That way the scans wouldn't return false positives. Clear, he confirmed as he motioned for them to move ahead. Tom had asked where they were going, and Slick had only had to mention the promise of riches and advanced modules for Tom to agree eagerly. Stupid spriglet, he'd thought. He periodically turned the flashlight on his rifle on and off, 1, to spot anything out of the ordinary, and 2, to help them see where they were going. Metal surrounded them on all sides now. Slick didn't like being in a foreign sector. Uncertainty gets you killed was a common phrase among contractors. The ping wasn't that far into the sector, but Slick knew it would take them a few hours to get there. He wouldn't rush into a trap. Being here was already a risky venture. He would take his time and leave if anything felt off. A scraping against the metal made him jerk his head around to Tom. Sorry, he mouthed, looking down to where his silencer had scraped a protruding piece of scrap. He won't last, Slick thought as they climbed up a ladder at the end of the corridor. Before he stuck his neck out, he whispered, Scan. When it returned all clear, he popped his head up and out of the small hatch, helping Tom up. Looking at the map on his arm, he couldn't see any signs of the creatures, but a foul smell told him they were certainly around. Tom gagged next to him. What the hell is that? He whispered. A nest, Slick replied as he continued down the path. Thick rubber cables hung tangled above them, some hanging dangerously low, flickering as jolts of electricity surged through them. Slick pointed to them, Motioning to be careful, the tunnel curved and continued to curve until it came to a dead end. A solid 20-foot circular metal door loomed in front of them. It was illuminated by a few battery-powered lights. Nearby, there were some discarded beer bottles and empty food tins. More importantly, a raggedy old rope ladder hung from one corner of the dead end, rungs broken here, missing there. Slick shone his mounted flashlight at the top of it, but it seemed to disappear into the sprawling wires above. I hate this more and more, he thought. So up then, Tom asked. Slick ignored him, trying to see where the ladder led to. The empty bottles and lights made him even more nervous. There might be other contractors, Tom stated, poking at an empty sardine tin. More like ravagers who'll slaughter us for fun, he thought, annoyed at the inaccuracy of the map. Difficult sectors like 4 often had missing or out-of-date information. Slick looked at him, then back at the ladder. I think up is a good idea, he said, smiling at Tom. Let me know when you reach the top and I'll follow. What? Why should I go first? It's only fair. I went up the first one and, well, you get to keep anything we kill, remember? Tom sighed, mumbling something to himself as began the ascent up the ladder. Slick stayed at the bottom, wary of the potential traps that lay before them. It was high enough off the ground that if someone were to cut it, they would certainly break a bone, and that would likely mean the end of them both. He scanned behind them, ensuring they hadn't been followed. While Tom went up, Slick stripped the batteries from the lights. Weasel probably won't want these, but Kasparov might throw a few credits my way. Slick! Tom yelled out in a panic, his voice shrill. Damn it, what now? What do you see? Slick replied, shining his torch at the mess of cables above. Someone's dead, just get up here. Quiet now, Tom. I'm on my way, he confirmed, slinging his rifle over his shoulder and starting up the ladder. When he finally reached the top, he saw Tom standing with his hand over his mouth, trying to keep his breakfast down. He was pointing at a decaying husk of a man, drained of all colour. What grabbed his attention most, however, were the 5 dark tunnels ahead of him. Scan, he said hastily. All clear. He shone his light on the corpse, investigating further. The middle-aged man was shriveled, as though his body had been drained of all liquid, and his skin was a sickeningly grey colour. His hands stuck out like stiff bony tendrils, and his hollow eyes and gaping mouth were an awful sight. What is that? Tom breathed, motioning toward the man's chest. Slick leaned in, shining his light directly at the area. His torso was pulsing unnaturally.